Welcome back, everybody. Thank you so much for staying glued to your screens. This is Rubbing Minds. It is the International Women's Month edition. We've been having such powerful conversations with iconic women. Now, if you're just tuning in before the break, we had an in-depth chat with Bolanle Austin Peters all about the business of art and culture in Nigeria and, of course, taking that business to the world. Now, we're going to take a conversation with a twist, looking more at corporate culture within Nigeria. Now, this woman is incredibly special because she shot to the top job of Cadbury Nigeria. Now, in the 50-year history of this company, they've never had a female MD, and Oyemika Adeboye is the lady who earned the right to be the first MD. It's such a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you for inviting me. It's a pleasure being here.
You penciled us in, you made time for us, so we really appreciate. We know your time is incredibly busy, but let's get straight to business. The pressure, I can only imagine, a company in 50 years that has never had a female at the helm. What were, did you succumb to any pressure from expectation? Did you have any fears going into this role?
Not really. I didn't have any fears because first in my previous role as finance director, I was essentially the number 2 in the business, so I knew what the job requires. I've always known that the pressure would be there. I've always known, what is expected of an MD. Over my career, I've worked with 8 MDs. So I've seen different styles of managing as a CEO. I've seen different expectations. And so, walking into the job was not like, something so green to me. So I know the expectations.
And what I always say about television is that people who watch us on TV, always feel a certain way about what it's like to be on the other side of the camera. So I want to know how close to your perception of the job, having worked so closely with so many MDs, how close to reality were your expectations?
I would say 80% close. There's a 20% that you don't see. So you don't see when the boss's boss is talking to you. You don't see when you have to go and meet a very senior person in government over an issue your company is facing. You don't see what I'll call the more broader issues as a global entity. So we're a global entity. We're part of the Multinational group, quoted in New York, so on the New York Stock Exchange. So there are a lot of expectations from that angle that, as CFO, you don't see everything. You see what you need to see, but no more. So yes, getting closer and doing the job, there's that 20% that is like, oops, I didn't know I had to do that.
And talking about learning, you said something very profound to me before we started the interview, and that was that you are not, if you just take me through the quote again, I believe you said it's more important who you are than what you do.
Yes.
If you just take the quote again.
So what I said is, who you are is more important than what you do, because you remain who you are with or without the job. You can't fake who you are. You are either that person, irrespective of what you meet and what comes before you, or you're somebody else. So, let me give you a classic example. We talked about this. So people assume certain things about you, and then when they get closer to you, they go, oh, I didn't know that. The joke in my office is people say they didn't know I eat. Because in my role, people don't see me. My previous role, people don't see me as often as they see me in my current role. So in my current role, I'm interacting more with people. So when I'm hungry and I ask for food, they go, "Oh, you eat?" So yes, I do eat.
I'm not a robot. But what's intriguing about that for me is that for me, first stepping into Nigeria, one of the things I was taught is that as a woman, if you want to be respected, you shouldn't joke and smile with people, with your peers and your colleagues, or else you won't be taken seriously. How much of that is accurate, and how much of a certain persona does a female need to put out to be respected as a leader?
Okay, so for me personally, I don't believe you should put up or put out anything that is not you. So just be natural and be yourself. I don't believe that I should walk into a place and keep reminding myself that, oh, I'm a woman, so I must do something in a particular way. This role is not because, I actually don't believe it's because I'm a woman. My company is very performance-based. Being a woman might have also helped. But in terms of getting this role, there were other people that were considered. I know that for sure, expatriates, locals. So it wasn't the case of, well, Oyemika is a woman and she's been in this company for X number of years, why don't we let her try the job? It was positioned in a way that we all competed, so to speak, for the role.
And having said that, I think the other, sort of, shall I say, nuance to this conversation is that the trend now is that a lot of companies are pursuing diversity, a lot of companies are pursuing parity. But how do we ensure that we're still, giving our end of the deal, our maximum value possible as women, and not ending up, just being quoted as women who are filling in the diversity quota, or it looks sexy for our branding?
So first of all, yes, the D&I thing is a big deal now. If you're a company quoted on the New York Stock Exchange, I understand it's one of the requirements. So for my global entity, for example, it's a requirement. However, the way we have always done it, even before this became a requirement, is we believe in meritocracy. We believe your performance would demonstrate, because at the end of the day, you also don't want to take risk and put someone there that's going to goof and mess up your business. So you have to be sure that this person can do the job. I think at the end of the day, each entity my belief, should ensure that, there is a parity.
Mm-hmm. Each for equal.
Absolutely, and should not, because I think it's the extreme that we're trying to talk against. The extreme is where women are generally put in a lower job because they're women, not because they don't deserve it. So provided a woman deserves it, you should let her do that role, rather than make assumptions on her behalf.
So we're closing the interview, but before we do so, I want to know your greatest life lesson.
Oof.
I know it's a tough one, but
yeah,
you look at somebody at the helm, of their career. You're doing so incredibly well. I love sort of the joy that shines through you when you also talk about your family and the balance you have with your partner and your children and so forth. So there's a lot of goodness happening around you. But I just love to know, what is the biggest life lesson that has allowed you to handle?
So just as you were talking, I can only think of my life priorities and how I prioritize anything I do. So I say to people, I prioritize my life through a sequence of 4. So it's God, because I'm a Christian. Then it's my husband, before my children, because the children will go.
He said the children will go.
They'll all disappear and have their own life. So it's God, my husband, my children, my job. And I always remind myself that if work is going to top those 3 priorities and work, then that has to go. I have to be able to do that. So if, for example, somebody says to me, sorry, because you're working for me, I don't want you to talk about God, I don't want you to be a Christian, I don't want to, then I'm out of there, because this is my priority. And God forbid if my husband says, oh, we have to stop going to church, we have to stop this Christian thing, I think,
yeah, he would go. But
and
we have the prayer point for the husband, though. So.
And we are bringing up our children,
Exactly.
Christian values anyway. So this is how I prioritize. And whatever I do in life, I always remind myself in terms of my priorities. This is important. So when it comes to life lessons, if something is on the burning platform, I ask myself in terms of priority, what's this doing to my priorities? And I take the call based on that.
I love that. I love it so much. And it certainly wasn't what I was expecting.
Oh, really?
No, it wasn't. It wasn't, especially because you're so successful. So we always, we all want the secret. And, I thought career would come, further forward.
No,
but that, I think, is a beautiful mix. So let's delve a little bit into the world of mergers, acquisitions, massive investments. I mean, we're talking millions of dollars. And we've been seeing so many of them making the news in Nigeria. However, it seems more often than not, the personalities involved are men. When you look at mergers, there's male personalities involved in whatever sector. Even some of the venture capitalists who've brought money into the space, fintech ventures and so forth, you look at these huge $10 million, $50 million investments into male-led entities. Where are the women when this narrative is concerned? Why are women not partaking in the bigger piece of the economic pie?
Okay, so I'll answer on 2 platforms. First, for Nigeria, locally, I think it's cultural. Women who do have, and women do have that money, but women who do have that money typically don't want to be seen to be acquiring and being bossy and taking over things. So, I do know a couple of women who have invested, but they invested quietly, no noise, done it quietly, and the entities are big entities, but they don't make noise. Secondly, I think within Nigeria, if you look at history, most of those companies that have done it had been male dominated. It's today that you're having female CEOs in banks and, so they would do things that they can do that their male counterparts did many years ago or recently because they were the CEOs then. So there are not that many female CEOs in banks yet. I think the more you get, the more of that you'll see. If I go internationally, my company, Cadbury Nigeria, was acquired by Kraft Foods. Kraft Foods CEO then was Irene Rosenfeld, who's a woman. And at the point when she acquired Cadbury, Cadbury wasn't a small company, it was a big company. She also acquired quite a few other huge companies to make our business today. Mondelez is the second biggest food company in the world. So, internationally, definitely women are taking those steps. Nigeria, culturally, I think we're not there yet.
It's intriguing that when women are involved in being assertive, enterprising, and, aggressive in business, it's a negative connotation. Do you think we're moving forward as a Nigerian culture in removing those negative associations from a woman who has her money, knows what she wants to do with it?
We are moving forward. Absolutely, we are moving forward. Otherwise, today this month we celebrate IWD. We celebrate women. 10 years ago we didn't in Nigeria. It was probably celebrated, but not as high key as we do today. Today, we all know that D&I is a big deal, and entities that have good, successful women don't have a choice but to showcase them because they know that if they don't, somebody else will poach them. So, there's more flexibility today.
And culturally, the male members of society often, there was a conditioning that, these women such as these are, ineligible for marriage, are, don't associate with this. This can only lead to instability and unhappiness and so forth. Do you feel in your interactions that the male members of society are also starting to understand that empowered women are not a threat to masculinity?
I believe so. I believe so. I think there's the conscious effort, which is important. But I thought also generally, I've seen so many women celebrated, businesswomen celebrated for their achievements, and people are receptive to it. I've seen entities who come to nominate best entrepreneurs, best this and best that, and in the rank and file are women. So yes, people are accepting it. I don't want to say the male,
I'm just looking at it more from a domestic front as opposed to from, the corporate front, where we are seeing, yes, the faces are there, the celebrations are there, the accolades are there. But, when we flip the script and look at it from sort of a social and domestic interaction.
I don't see any biases at all.
Wonderful.
I could list quite a few friends of mine who run their businesses successfully, and I look at their relationship with their husbands or partners, and I see the husband being like mine, being the cheerleader and saying, oh, she can do it. Straight off my mind is Kofo Akinkwugbe, who has set up a business that's really doing fantastically well. And her husband is like her biggest cheerleader, and there are many like her who set up business and are doing very, very well. And, at home, you can tell from both, if you know them privately and also in terms of how they present themselves, that, she's getting all the support she needs at home. Otherwise, she wouldn't succeed. If you see a woman that succeeded, somebody at home, especially if she's married, somebody at home is encouraging her. She's not rebelling.
I love that narrative. I love it. The dynamic works. The dynamic works. So on that note, this is where we're going to call it a day. Thank you so much again for your time. That's Oyemika Adeboye, who is the first ever female MD of Cadbury Nigeria. That is in 50 years. What a milestone. We're going to keep tabs on her because we know there's plenty more to celebrate coming from her in years to come. But for now, we take a very quick breather. When we return, we're joined by music legend Salawa Benny. Don't move.
This is a Rubbing Minds special for International Women's Month, powered by Lipton.